Uh, so the program will be live stream on our Facebook page of Vishwaneedam Center for Asian Blossoming and also on our YouTube channel. So, dear and respected friend, thank you so much for your kind participation in today's Swadhyay Chakra Weekly Forum Dialogue. Today we are going to nurture this dialogue uh, with a title, the book that we have seen, that is Media, Violence and Youth from Rawat Publication. And today the talk will be nurtured by Professor Dipti Ranjan Sahu. Thank you so much, sir, for accepting our invitation to share your thoughts in our Swadhyay Chakra Weekly Forum. I extend a very warm welcome to Professor Arun Kumar Sharma ji, Professor Gyan Guloi from Italy, Professor Mohanty, Minati Pradhan ji, and our dear Ananta bhai. Let me give a brief introduction to our Professor Dipti Ranjan Sahu. He's a professor and head from Department of Sociology. He is nurturing the living legacy of Lucknow School of Sociology and Anthropology. He is a very passionate teacher and institution builder. We can see the rare accomplishment of Lucknow School of Sociology, and Professor Dipti Ranjan Sahu played a very significant role in shaping that accomplishment. He has a very vast interest of sociology research. He is specialized in study of social movement, and we have seen a very significant work that published from Sage publication with a title called Sociology of Social Movement. He has a number of publications, and most importantly, shaping new scholars for sociology knowledge building initiatives. So thank you so much. And now I request Ananta bhai to give a kind of brief background of this book called Media, Violence and Youth. So Ananta bhai, over to you.
Thank you so much, dear Randhir, and thank you, Professor Sahu, Professor Sharma, and all friends co-present. I am yet to read the book, so I would offer just a few initial thoughts to warm us up into this very important theme that the book deals with: media, violence, and youth. Media, for example, media is a multidimensional reality and part of our life in society and history. But the contemporary media has taken a particular turn. The contemporary media has become very instantaneous, and the contemporary media has been controlled by a few vested interests: the media industry, the culture industry, which has a propensity to produce violence. And therefore, the theme of violence emerges from many dimensions of our contemporary, both system world and the life world. And another aspect of the media world today is that the media has become so one-sided in terms of just speaking, and speaking, one-sided assertion. And there is no possibility just to think together, to argue together. And I remember when I was doing field work with the attack movement, attack standing for a social justice movement, association for taxation for global citizens. There in Sweden, attack movement initiated a very interesting practice. It is called dialogues, in which it is called confrontative dialogue, in which on a particular issue, like whether Sweden should give away the tax burden, whether it should relieve the tax burden, that would be the topic, and the Swedish finance minister would share his thought, and the people who do not agree with that, they would share this thought. And that is a very interesting kind of media space, public sphere. But today it has become too one-dimensional. About youth is that youth is also multi-layered, but there is the question of generations. So as a member of the Club of Rome, that we have a project with the youth, it is called 50-50, and it is also called the New Generational Compact. And in my note to this project, I brought the idea of generations and generativity and generosity. That means it is the idea of a 3G, the new generation that the youth embody. Now, this generation has to be part of a generational communication. We have the idea of the social contract. But our idea of social contract in modernity does not have a generational component, because many ancient societies like the indigenous communities of America, they have a principle of 7 generations. Whatever decision we are taking, let us think about the implication of this for 7 generations. What is going to happen to the 7th generation? But what is the decision-making moment of modernity? 7 minutes or 7 months, that therefore a new generational compact requires a new generational covenant and a new generational solidarity. Hannah Arendt, the great political philosopher, she talks about natality, being born. Therefore, being born, as the new generation is being born, how do we become part of, become born of the old and the new? It requires generosity. And it also requires a new configuration of power. Because in sociology, if we look at all sociological studies, they do not have voices of the children. No sociological monograph has voices of the children. But when they, on the sociologists write memoir, like we had discussion on Professor Andres Bethe's memoir, My Two Grandparents, is so deep, but we do not find a voice of a child in either caste, class, and power or any sociological monograph. Therefore, just the theme of the youth as part of a new generational responsibility that we would have to cultivate. And with this, kind of note about the wider field in which the book is located, we invite Professor Sahu to kindly make his presentation. We request him to kindly make your presentation for 30 minutes, and then we would have kind of 15 minutes of discussions, please. And today being Navaratri, so we would kind of greet each other with a hug, Navaratri hug by 6:30, and then move on. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, am I audible?
Yes, that you are audible.
Okay. Thank you so much for inviting me to such kind of series of deliberations by sociologists and philosophers and social scientists in India and also from across the country, across the globe. And I must congratulate Professor Ananta Giri and Professor the convener is a very young and youth person, is personifying youth. So in a way, youth is also very much interested in such kind of, uh, exercise, which is helping others and facilitating, such kind of a dialogue or discourse. Uh, I'm very honored and privileged to be part of this exercise. Thank you, Ananta Bhai, and thank you, the, the whole team. This is a kind of an, book which has been a product of one ICSSR, Indian Council of Social Science Research, major research project. And that was a kind of a study which was conducted in 6 cities of the country. And the study was basically, we wanted to look at, and the kind of, how the youth is, uh, you know, trying to look at the media, and what kind of, situations are coming up. We had initially taken up 6 cities, particularly Lucknow, Ahmedabad, Calcutta, Kolkata, Agartala, and Bangalore, and also Delhi. So these are the areas. Even we had also, these are the areas. These are the cities we have taken it as a kind of, um, place and space and locations where we wanted to. We had a, study, and some kind of a, wanted to see the how youth is trying to look at this media as a communication, as a mode of communication, and we have also looked at the violence. So based on this study, uh, we have certain issues which we have raised in this particular book. I think it would have been much better that we would have somebody, people have read this book, and then we would have discussed about it. That would have been much better. But anyway, it's like a cut and razor, and it's like a, I will try to brief about the whole the content of the book, so that it can also motivate others to read the book and give their comments and feedbacks. This is a book which is all about 7 chapters. And the first chapter talks about the communications, and that communication is all about mediated communication, and how it is shaping the modern society. This is the first chapter is all about introducing the problem in the sense of how this mediated communication and the shaping of modern society. And the second chapter talks about normally when you look at social phenomena, or any kind of, uh, the problems of the society, or any kind of, study which we take up, we look at the historical perspectives. And in that context, we also, in the second chapter, we have also talked about the historical perspectives on the media violence concerns. So it's all about concerns of the violence. And this is all about the trajectory from Plato to modern times, like how this media is a kind of, a communication which has also um, perpetuating, or some kind of a violence is part of it. And in that context, what third chapter is also about the media and violence, where we have taken about the historical perspective, at the same time the contemporary concerns, basically uh, the empirical or the reality check, particularly what is happening around. And since if you know about the Lucknow University and the Department of Sociology, which was uh, established in after 2 years of Bombay School, or Bombay University Department of Sociology, that is exactly 1921. And Radha Kamal Mukherjee and DP Mukherjee, Jyoti Prasad Mukherjee, D.N. Majumdar, A.K. Saran, they were the, uh, you can say they're the founding, uh, academic guide or mentors for establishing sociology department in University of Lucknow. And in that case, I would like to inform the august audience that Professor Durjati Prasad Mukherjee, hence I'll be telling him about, in the name of very short name, he is very popularly known as DP Mukherjee. DP has written about the problems of Indian youth. So I wanted to, look at this particular study because, Lucknow University has, after DP Mukherjee, many of social science, sociologists, professors have worked on youth, not as a statistical category, but as a social category. So in that case, DP Mukherjee played a very important role in understanding the youth, the problem of Indian youth, and particularly youth as a social category. So I also wanted to see this. The youth, the fourth chapter is all about youth research in Asia and also particularly in Indian context and the dynamics and challenges and the opportunities. So this is all about media violence and youth, and also the fifth chapter is also about the impact or effect or influence of media on youth behavior. And then the sixth chapter is all about an assessment. And that assessment is based on the studies and based on the research carried out in 6 cities of India, where I had, one of my joint authors and along with my research associate, we had gone for an impact assessment of media violence on youth behavior and the kind of socio-cultural context and the kind of concerns, which is a kind of, field view. And that field view is all about in the 6th chapter. And the 7th chapter is all about the behavior of youth, particularly how the theoretical perspective and the sociological perspective, and also the kind of ground realities. On the basis of that, we have tried to, draw certain inferences, particularly we have tried to articulate certain inferences, and also try to provide some pathways for interventions, particularly the social policies. So this is all about the book. And when you look at the whole, what is all about this book, I'll tell you some of the important some significant idea about this particular book. As a student of sociology, when you look at the society, and as a student of sociology, we are all interested in understanding and describing and analyzing social phenomena and trying to refract and reflect social phenomena through social categories. And for us, in this particular book is youth as an important, social category. And on the basis of that, we had some, intersectional perspective, particularly youth in the context of caste, class, gender, ethnicity, and also in the context of an urban setting. That's more important. So what I wanted to, tell you about this particular book is we have used, there are 3 things, One is youth as a social phenomena, social category, not as a statistical category, and also media as media is a very important, what do we call it, how it is influencing, how it is impacting the society. Everybody is aware about it. And third is the violence. So the 3 things which I am trying to discuss about it. And as you know, violence, if you look at the Indian society, and violence um, is a very important growing concern. And now media uh, is all about reporting the news, and also we have seen that how the media serves the programs, and as if you know the contemporary print media, not exactly the print media, if you look at the electronic media, it also serves there are a lot of serials based on violent behavior and exposure to the people, how it is promoting violent behavior. And as you know, media is also promoting the violent behavior. If you look at this, the problem of violence in our culture has many sociological dimensions, including poverty, breakdown of the joint family. And this is a very important paradigm shift from traditional morality to uh, situational pluralism, and how it is also trying to be part of the mass media. So this exposure to certain violent portrayal can lead to positive or pro-social impact or pro-social effects. But the effects of exposure to media violence may be, there are two things, it's immediate, there are impact, and also that has also long-term impact. So the most important point when you talk about violence, then we are also, we have to understand about the viewers or the people who are consuming such kind of media reports, and there is a kind of an aggression. And if you look at then you find that the viewers aggression, and particularly if you look at in the context of the youth research in India, particularly, and if you look at some of the sociological studies or social scientists who have studied about this, that there are, um, we all talk about diversities, we all talk about plural, multicultural perspective, and we all talk about social development. There are also many studies with regard to youth and social environment. But the question is, when you look at this, then there are that has to be analyzed from perspectives. That, for example, age is a very important category. That what we are talking about youth. Then we also have to be very, we have to be very clear about, we have to be careful about the issues of gender, and we have to be careful about the process of socialization, then the ecosystem. And in that context, the violence, particularly media, related media influence, particularly, it can be seen from the structures from micro to macro, particularly family, school, community, peer groups, and the kind of whole socialization experiences, and that has an impact. And in that context, we this against this backdrop, this present study is all about examining the media violence and its effect on youth. And as I said, the whole book has been divided into 7 chapters. And as initially I wanted to discuss about the chapter wise, I would like to give you some of the important highlights that youth. We all in the context of Indian society, we all say that youth is for us in the country like India is a dividend, and youth constitute the most important category, and they are the most vulnerable to the influence of media. And in the context of sociological categories, sociological analytical category like identity, freedom, physical and emotional changes. And in that context, the impact of media on culture, social institutions, interpersonal relationship has been well realized. So what the issue is, when you look at the contemporary India, and we all are aware of the consumerism culture, that the kind of how this the uh, consumerism, or you can say the neoliberal forces, and the kind of consumption pattern, and the kind of the culture. There is a connection between interconnectivity between this neoliberal economy, consumption pattern, and also culture. So we used to call it as a like consumerism. All culture is also promoted by the market forces, and this market process through media driven strategy. And this is all about the contemporary India, which we call it globalizing. So when you look at Indian society, and being a sociology student of sociology, when you look at we have to see that time and space is very important factor. And from that point of view, when you look at that India during freedom struggle, India in the nation building process from independent India, but now this India is all about globalizing India. So from that point of view, when you see this, that how this media driven strategies, and how the market forces is playing an important role. And here I would like to mention about electronic media, especially uh, the television, and also the social media. And in that context, information and communication technology have changed the lifestyle and working of youth, particularly when you look at not only the youth, rather, if you look at the recent economic transactions, particularly UPI, how it has impacted not even youth, even the pools across the people, across the sections of the people, how UPI is playing an important role. So in that context, when you see this, there are also, we have to see that media and the mode and nature of violence. And particularly if you look at, there are two sources. One is television and internet sources. And these are very important, uh, mobile technology. And they are the potential devices for also giving information. Uh, I'm not against. I also would like to take. I would like to tell about some of the positive aspects, but at the same time, the devices are also potential devices, and these potential devices for propagating violence. This is a real concern, and the kind of horror, action films, episodes of various serials, and these are all demonstrating the use of strategies, use of weapons, the kind of crime scenes and committing, and also it is connecting with the kind of deviant behavior. And this are there are certain glaring examples, particularly if you look at the Nirvaya incident, and this has also impacted. So what I want to tell you in this book, particularly what we wanted to explain, that the action and the story of different action films as episodes of the serials also influence youth. Uh, there are emotional factors. So the media violence has certain characteristics of heroic violence, and there are also, the violence is called a kind of happy violence, which is generally funny and humorous to children. And the third type of violence is about unpunished violence. Generally, in many media programs, the villain is punished in the end of the program. And if you look at some of the Indian movies or some of the things, then you'll find the last category of during COVID played an important role. So the idea is uh, the youth are more vulnerable and prone to such kind of exploitations and the kind of but the most important point is, and there are also some influences, and the influences in the sense that we can also understand about the so-called contemporary political culture, so-called the political parties, and how they are trying to, you know, use or misuse, or they're trying to abuse the youth, particularly in the context of making them as an important, uh, category where they are trying to, uh, influence or exploit the youth. So in this context, the aggression, particularly if you look at the some of the important slogans by Vivekanand and many others, for example, they have always emphasized on that youth can change the society. And I need some youth, even Subhash Chandra Bose, even Vivekanand, many, even if you look at the Cuba Revolution, and even if you look at during 60s, the youth, particularly students movement in India. So there are, a lot of instances, a lot of examples which has been part of the history. And in that case, you have seen. Now the question is, when you look at this contemporary society, there is a problem with the work-life balance, hectic life schedule, increasing working hours, particularly if you look at, there are many corporate sectors, and there are many situations where you find how they are. So the question is, the youth are the potential workforce, even the potential manpower for the future society. But at the same time, we have also seen from the field that they are also more dependent on media, and the media and the source of information. And in that case, the young people are susceptible to such kind of issues, and susceptible to all kind of forces. So everybody in social sciences, we have all been realizing that the mass media has a crucial role in the process of social change, and such kind of television as a and all the mass media and the kind of social media, they had there are impact, there are positive impact. At the same time, this particular book is all about articulating the negative impact. And 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 in that case, this the kind of, if you look at the TRP, particularly how that kind of viewership, particularly if you look at, then we have seen that how this has an important point. So what I wanted to tell you about this impact of mass media on the society, in this context, it's a kind of a power structure, and its its power allows us to reflect upon the role that this kind of media play in fulfilling our communication needs. And in that case, if you look at the print media, and if you look at the print media, the most important point is you have to have a level of literacy, minimum level of literacy, so that you can read and you can analyze, you can also analyze, and you can also read. There's a minimum level of literacy and ability of readers to understand the content. But the broadcast media may have a high impact in some societies, because it there is this broadcasting and there's a kind of mass media and the electronic media, they are there is an ability to transcend the barriers of literacy. So in this context, the depiction of violence in media has many dimensions, and violence in conflict situations, terrorist attack, communal violence. And when you see this print and audio media or electronic media through the incident, and if you see this visual media, television and cinema provides visuals that are graphic and dynamics. And in that context, what I would like to say that this has a more impact than the print media, because the electronic print media has to have some kind of literacy. When you see this, that how it has a strong impact across, irrespective of their literacy level. And in that context, the youth population, particularly if you look at Indian society, then you see there are many issues which is there in my studies, which is based on certain things. So what I wanted to tell you, when we we wanted to see this particular media violence and youth, we also had some theoretical perspectives of media violence. And this theoretical
I think we have some network issue. We are just connecting him. Yes, sir. Please continue. Sir, you are muted.
सर म्यूट है अभी.
हाँ, हो गए.
Yes. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes sir.
Okay. So what I wanted to discuss about, apology for the disconnect. I somehow I don't know, but needs to be this media violence needs to be understood from a perspective, and as I have discussed about this whole issue, is how this video games, for example, and that if you look at not for the children even, the video games as a kind of a situation where in the global scale, observe that there is a less and less space in increasing urban, suburban, metro culture that is not developed. That's more and more people feel anxious about safety of the children playing in public parks, particularly in the city life and in their neighborhoods. And in that context, video games are engaged in competitive or exploratory play within the safety of their homes. So, but the interesting part is that violent video is complete freedom of movement. And in that context, when you see this, there is a direct experience of domestic confinement. And this is a kind of a value. And particularly if you look at that is called a boy culture into this technological environment. And if you look at what we have seen in 6 cities of the country, particularly Lucknow, Delhi, Ahmedabad, Bangalore, even Agartala, even Kolkata, that what we see that Indian growing middle class, urban culture, this urban culture has similar but more complex character because of joint families, traditions, and rising aspirations of a kind which is not rooted in traditions. And this is a very important point which we could find. And when you see this in the context of our present study, then we wanted to see that to have, let us have a theoretical perspective of media violence and its dimensions and effect on youth. This is one. Second is how various formats of hello.
आवाज आ रही है सर
Hello.
बोलिए
अच्छा, ठीक है. So actually there's a power cut because it's raining, and in that context, what I wanted to inform you, this particularly, if you look at the kind of was carried out to Uttar Pradesh, Delhi, West Bengal, Tripura, Karnataka, and Gujarat, where Lucknow, Delhi, Kolkata, Agartala, Bangalore, and Ahmedabad were selected for these studies. And in this study, what we have seen that how there are important points which I wanted to say that around more than 1,500 youths were covered in this study sample. And particularly if you look at how this various programs displayed on electronic media covered by print media are located with elements of violence and inciting youth to the deviant and violent in their behavior. And in that context, what we have examined that the media violence also is the product of the nature and the social formation, the mode of production, the state formation, particularly after the independence of the country, and the lack of proper socializations and civic culture inculcated in the minds of youth are potential reasons for youth being affected by the violent media. And in the chapters, in the subsequent chapters, what we have done is that we have also looked at the sex as an important marker, family type, occupational structure, religion, social category, types of schooling, monthly income as significant parameters for understanding the behavioral responses of the youth and towards the media in a society. And when you see this influence of media on youth behavior, that what we have tried to see, that the kind of study which we have carried out, and the importance of understanding youth phenomena has becoming an alarming and escalating concern for the youth researchers in many countries in Asia. And it is also believed that youth and young population, and particularly comprised of college and university going students, are actively understand the dynamics of social problems and their amicable resolutions. However, youth are largely affected by media violence, thus the behavior is also changing. And this particular study is all about examining the impact of violence on youth behavior in major academic institutions of higher education. So the whole idea is all about a kind of, using theoretical perspective, at the same time trying to see the empirical, empirical understanding of urban spaces of India, particularly 6 cities. So this is all about the study, and I would be happy, and if people can also go through this book. It is published by Rawat, and it is available. It's published in 2024. So the study is all about empirical in nature, and there are also field-based study, and it also, has sufficient literature on the media violence and theoretical perspective. And this particular study was sponsored by Indian Council of Social Science Research. So, to conclude, what I wanted to say, that this youth, the young generation, has encountered complex changes, and the kind of domestic, regional, global changes, and it has also been found that people are understanding, and if you look at this media violence and the behavior, how it has, this book is all about examining the impact of media violence on the behavior of youth in major academic institutions. And some of the important findings I would like to explain, where we had seen that more than majority of the respondents are from metropolitan, urban centers, and many of them are also from Hindu category, particularly if you look at the religious context. And around 60% of the people are from the general caste. And when I found it in some of the, and if you look at the people are from the private sectors and the government sectors, and it's all about some of the important findings, and majority of them are graduates and postgraduates. And when you see this this kind of situations where I am trying to see that knowledge knowledge-based industry, or I have looked at some of the college and university students, and where I found that the majority of them are from the university and college students. And in that situations, what I found, that that the content of electronic media and is more than the news, the political events, and sports, serials, debates. And in that context, they are watching television programs which contain a large input of violence. For example, Savdhan India, CID, Crime Patrol, Netflix series, and these are some of the important data which we could collect it definition of violence. Violence is a violation of characters, physical or emotional well-being, and it should include elements both intentionally and also are. So in that context, when you see this broader the definition of media violence, the level of act, type of act, intentionality, degree of harm to the victims, type of harm, and level of openness, level of reality, and level of humor. So we need to understand more about how the public defines violence. Similarly, it is more important to know that how we perceive media violence and their effect in changing sociocultural value systems. So this all is a study which is very interesting when you look at some of the data collected from the info from the findings. So what I would suggest based on this kind of study, that there should be some kind of a regulatory measures on social media, which the government is also talking about it, and the content, particularly the content of social media, should have some kind of a check and balance, particularly if you look at spam, aggression, violent contents of media coverage should be discouraged by the internet service provider. So there is also a role of government, but the question is, there are certain incidences which we also found in some of the areas where there is a strong strong political will to do this, and particularly if you look at the accessibility to specific sites in some of the search engine should also be regulated. And when you see this the timing for watching the specific internet sites. So what this particular study is all suggesting is that the regulatory mechanisms is also an important point, where we have to see this even the Supreme Court, you must have seen this particular context in the recent Supreme Court judgment about the child pornography. So there are a large number of violent content is also available in the internet informations. And in this context, when you see this, that the government or the state or the central or state government should look into this matter in a very serious way, where judiciary is also taking an important initiatives, particularly in the context of what we have seen in the recent judgment about the child pornography. So this is all about this book, and it has been it has given a theoretical perspective, and also given certain empirical data, particularly from the urban settings, particularly the city life, where the college and university students have been part of this particular exercise. And I'm sure this kind of book is going to help people to know more about how the media violence is impacting Indian youth, particularly in the urban setting. So this is all about from my side, and thank you for giving me an opportunity to give some of the important points about my book, and to articulate some of the important findings of my book. Thank you so much,
Thank
Randhir,
you.
and for giving me an opportunity.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir, for a very inviting and engaging presentation. And violence in media is becoming more accessible everyday life, every day, and with a growing number of videos and images that expose our society to media violence. And as you said, we must take some action to regulate it. So your study is a kind of invitation for all of us to engage with the question from the purview of sociology of everyday life, sociology of youth, social disorganization. and also understanding 21st century as a challenge of technology and violence. Now I request Professor Arun Kumar Sharma sir to share some of his reflections on your presentation.
Thank you, sir. It's a very interesting book. Actually, first of its kind, dealing with violence and attitude towards violence, impact of media in several cities of India and in different states. So right now, I cannot say I will have to read the book. But the question which is coming to my mind, that due to impact of media or politics or otherwise, and Professor Sahu, do you also find support for violence among certain sections of youth?
Support, can you please, sir, tell me what kind of, what is your question again? I should,
For example, violence in the form of communal riots, rapes, criminal actions. So today I find that due to media and due to politics, there is a lot of legitimization of criminal activities. Do you find any support for legitimization of criminal activities?
What I have mentioned about in my book is all about sponsored.
I think we have some network issue again. So I request
And that
Professor
is there.
Gyan.
So,
Oh, sorry. Yes, sir. Please carry.
so this is also there. Yeah, I have also some arguments in the context of how it is also being sponsored and how it is being influenced by the community, even some of the political parties and some of the uh, interest groups particularly, and the pressure groups particularly, how they are trying to do it, and they have also been successful in spreading the violence. And yes, absolutely right, sir.
Thank you. Now I request Professor Gyan Bloy to share some of your reflections.
Yes, thank you very much. I am not an expert in this matter, therefore I do not know precisely, I did not know precisely very many of the questions which were discussed. It was very interesting, and I'm reflecting on the different subjects. Well, connected to some points which were made in the question before, I would like perhaps to ask how it could be avoided that the political parties implement the violence without revealing themselves. There are effects is different, therefore I can understand that it cannot be transposed. The questions, the situation cannot be one-to-one transposed, but there were phenomena, events in which there was an implementation of violence, really an advertisement for violence, more or less secret, in media. But TV, perhaps more in the TV than in other media, but anyway, in all media. And it was not immediately clear that there were political parties behind these sort of advertisements and exhortation, incitation to violence. Now, I was wondering how one can, first of all, discover, because it's not always so simple to see that the secret source of a message of violence is a political party. They are very, 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 at least in Europe, in the European context, many times they are very, very capable to conceal themselves. And So I was wondering what one can do in order to understand that those who have the red thread of the exhortation to violence are political parties, but it's more than a question so which emerged in my mind due to the many reflections which were implemented by your brilliant observations. Thank you very much. It was really very interesting. I need to read the book and I need to meditate on the subject. It's very, very interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And what I got to know about you is that the contexts are different. Yes, if you look at the context, like when you see there are two kind of values. One is individual value and societal values. And when you see this individual values, and particularly from the Western context, you find there's a lot of freedom. But when you look at the societal values, and the normative pattern, and the kind of situations where we in kind of India in the context of Indian society, we found that yes, there are certain issues of morality, particularly in the context of societal values, and where we have not been very successful in providing that kind of the value of citizenship, the value of you know the altruistic value. So there are certain issues, and if you look at the country like India, we have some moral conditions are more in the context of individuals. Values are more from the family, from the community, from the the kind of the kind of socialization process. But if you look at the societal values, and we in the country like India, we have seen that we have been less serious about the societal values. And this is also an important point where we take everything for granted in the context of societal values, and the violence, vandalizing, doing something, um, you know, uh, violence in the public places, particularly if you look at the kind of people have used this at a kind of a very important means for making them visible in the context of group solidarity, or we as a student of social movement, when we find that violence is also one of the means of making your presence felt. Like when you see this through violent or non-violent means, we would like to make ours. Yes, these are the situations where we have seen. But the question is, the context is important. They are in a way, yes, there are certain issues which needs to be more examined, and needs to be explained more in details. Thank you for your comments
Thank
and
you.
questions.
Now I request Rowan to share some of your reflection. Rowan is taking some time. Now I invite Minati Pradhanji.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. I want to congratulate the authors on this release of this book. I mean, the discussions were really very insightful. So just I have few small queries. I just want to ask that whether any psychological aspect was included into these studies. That is one question, one query. And the second one is like whether any remedies has been given. I mean, what is to be done? I mean, when you are talking about the video games and all, I mean, I myself has written so many opinions about this, how the video games should be stopped and how it is making violent to the youth and children. As parent, what are the problems normally people face? But I don't think that any senior or any public making, policy making authorities are giving any,
Okay.
what to say, any attention to it. So whether these two things, just I wanted to ask.
Thank you,
Thank you.
madam. This is basically a study which has been dealt from through both psychological and sociological aspects. So where we have also taken into cognizance of some of the aspects of how they have been motivated to resort to this kind of violent activities, but not in that exactly psychological parameters. But what we have more emphasized on, the social issues like the family background, the kind of socialization process, the kind of the kind of habits, the kind of everyday life, how they have been motivated, and what kind of pressures are there. And the second part, when we were talking about the I had given some of the points in the concluding, concluding chapters, the regulatory mechanisms that we have all discussed about it. But despite all regulatory mechanisms, when we say that human beings are always deviant by nature, so the question is, deviance is a kind of some kind of it's part of inbuilt system. But the question is how you try to control them. For example, when you see in families like all kind of urban spaces, and the people, husband and parents, are more busy about their professional life, and they have less time for the children, and they are all dependent on the tutors, and dependent on the children to grow them to be on the competitive mode. So what happened is there is a lack of communication between the parents and children. That is also there. So in that case, what we have seen in many of the schools, particularly in the city life, what we have seen and what we have experienced, that many of the parents are not even attending parent-teachers meeting. They are also sending their children, their tutors, to attend the parent-teachers meeting because they have no time. So the question is, how you are engaged in your children's socialization process, how you are there has to be a dialogue. There is a less dialogue, the less communication between the parents and children. So these are, and even the children are also more comfortable with the private space, and these are all issues where we all say that okay, let them be given free space. Even if you look at in sociological term, when you see that many of the family children, many in our urban life, we have seen, and we have seen that children are not very comfortable even in sharing their personal space to their family members or the relatives. So the question is how this is also leading to a kind of a that family and particularly the upbringing, and you have to have a watch, and you have to have a continuous dialogue and the communication between the children, and that will make things meaningful, and it can also help the youth to be on a different side rather than going towards such kind of video games and other things. So these are important issues where the urban space are now confronting such kind of situations. But yes, these are important points, and some of the points have been discussed, that how the aspiration has also the more competitive spirit, the more kind of to being an achiever, and to do something big also has some of the negative consequences. And in the context, to become more and more financially stable, more and more becoming more and more economically better, and the breakdown of the joint family, and shifting morality. These are all important points where we have to look at these aspects.
Thank you. Now we are going to have our final question and comment from Rowan Moses. Yes, Rowan.
For the presentation. And I was also kind of meditating on violence and youth and media. And I was thinking about one theory by Rene Girard called mimetic violence. That violence or desire firstly is actually fundamentally imitative. We are exposed to these violent patterns in media, through media, then, and these patterns are kind of given to us by these big large corporations. When you spoke about Netflix and all these OTT, I don't know what they're called, channels are actually the big corporations, and they want viewership. So for that, they want people to get, or the youth to kind of get into them. So they kind of have these very engaging, violent scenes. And most of the youth are consuming these patterns. These patterns of desire, they just keep getting repeated and imitated by the youth. So in that context, actually, violence media makes a lot of sense in relation to the youth. And, apart from that, I haven't read the book, so I have to read the book in order to get deep into it. But thank you, sir.
Thank you, Rowan. Now I request, I think we have some network issue from Dr. Sahu's side. So I request Minati ji to offer vote of thanks, then can wind up.
Yeah, thank you. I hope I'm audible. I
Yes,
mean,
you're audible.
all to this, in my point of view, I just wanted to tell one more, point, like the regulatory boards can make a lot of difference, what is to be telecasted or what is to be permitted as like all these OTT platforms and all. But, the parental things are also okay. But I think also, it is my personal experience also, like there was a Netflix, some show that was called Patal Lok. Just I wanted to watch why it is so popular, so I'll just have a look. So some of my family members, some children, they said, no, they did not allow it. It has a foul language. It was, I was very proud. Okay, that means not the motherly things, we just control them, but they said, no, you don't watch, it's very foul language. So that, once you make them understand what is good and bad, that makes a lot of difference. And the regulatory board, these two things just I wanted to add. And thank you so much. On behalf of Swadhyasa Chakra and Vishwaneedam Center for Asian Blossoming, I, Minati Pradhan, would like to thank our today's chief speaker, Professor Dipti Ranjan Sahu, and want to congratulate him for his book. Really, it is the need of the hour, and it will help a lot of people to get the insight and to take the necessary steps. I also would like to thank our today's Professor Arun Kumar Sharma, Professor Gyan Luigi, Mr. Rowan, then Rama Sharma, then Madam, I don't know everybody's name, that people who have joined. I really thank all of you from the bottom of my heart. And I also thank our Zoom and YouTube platform participants. Please pardon me if I have forgotten anybody's name, but I really thank you. Thank all of you to being part of this journey. And thank you all.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for inviting.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.